Hello, friends. Welcome to Mike Inspires Me, the show about wellness, amazing people, and information to inspire you to take charge of your life and your health. In this episode, I chat with Dr. Tom Rifai about the importance of using lifestyle changes as a first course of action for treating health issues. Dr. Tom is the founder of Reality Meets Science, a health coaching, consulting, and education company. He's an expert in the areas of metabolic health and behavior modification-based management of insulin resistance, type 2 and pre-diabetes, dyslipidemia, hypertension, and weight control. We're both about the same age, have similar undergraduate college education, and we both struggle with binge eating. He's a pretty down-to-earth and chill dude, too. I really enjoyed our chat, and I think you will, too. So sit back and enjoy this episode of Mike Inspires Me. All right. Dr. Tom, I am excited. Thank you for making yourself available. I know you've been a very busy guy. You've got a lot of things going on, and I appreciate that you could clear your schedule to talk today.
Absolutely. Mike, if I may say, my rock and roll brother, I'm ready to rock, and I'm happy to be here with you.
I love it. I love it. All right. I'm feeling the vibe. You were waking me up because this is a fun time of night. Well, the reason I contacted, we only recently met, and I think it's pretty awesome. As I mentioned to you, I've been following the lifestyle medicine movement for a while, and my followers have heard me talk about it, and some of them kind of look at me and go, what the heck are you talking about? But basically, what I've been really trying to advocate to people is the importance of using lifestyle changes as a first course of action for treating health issues. And obviously, in this day and age, that's becoming more and more important because of the way the system is set up in the doctor's offices, with the quick little visits and the over-prescribing of medications and just all kinds of issues going on, type 2 diabetes and, obesity. And just we've got a whole list of problems that are being created because of lifestyle issues.
Oh, that's absolutely right. A article in the medical journal docs read a lot, called JAMA, or Journal of the American Medical Association. Characterize the true causes of early death really come down to feet, fork, and fingers, and the lack of activity. Fingers relates to smoking. We're doing better in that regard, but it's not like it's down to zero. We still have a long way to go. And then, of course, forks. And when it comes down to food, those three things really comprise about 80% of the causes of early death. And as we were talking, as we were warming up, as you mentioned, probably about 80% of healthcare costs can be attributed in some shape or form to something that's at least conceptually or theoretically preventable through lifestyle, therapeutic lifestyle, as we would call it.
Yeah, it's amazing because it's seemingly a simple thing, right? You say, well, these are things within your control, but obviously the world we're living within, it's not so easy.
Well, I'm glad you distinguished it because it's actually through a system I've developed leading multidisciplinary care programs over 15 years and over 20,000 hours of working with individuals in multidisciplinary care settings with psychologists and dietitians and chefs and exercise specialists. It is actually rather simple, but it is far from easy, and they are two very different things.
Right.
The analogy is kind of morbid, but if your friend is stuck under a car, it's not very complicated. You better find 7 or 8 strong people as fast as you can and lift the. What's our rating on this podcast?
It's adult.
I'll say that as fast as you can. I mean, you don't need a PhD and you don't need physics formulas. It's not complicated. It's very simple, but is it easy? No.
Right.
So there is at least good news that the principles of disease prevention and even very significant disease control, probably even reversal, are pretty simple and come down to 5 key areas. Right. But the problem is that we're really, as you've said, swimming upstream in an environment that's pushing the exact opposite.
Exactly. So. I think I said shoveling shit against the tide, but Good enough.
Okay. Oh, you got clearance on the F-bomb.
But yeah, you're right. I mean, it is, you know, from the out, that's what people, I remember when I went to my doctor and he first said to me, Mr. Harrington, you're morbidly obese. And I knew I was fat and I had never heard the word morbid. And I was like, really, morbid? Anyway, I said, morbid obesity sounds like a death metal band to me. Morbid obesity. I had no idea what that was, but it took me aback. So I said, well, you know, what can I do? And he's like, well, you need to eat less, get more exercise. He was a little old school, so.
Well, I'll tell you, it's funny that you say that. The recent, speaking of that journal, the Journal of the American Medical Association, a doctor from Harvard, Dr. Joanne Manson, wrote about the need to change our attitude as physicians, something, of course, I've done since the beginning, and in fact even ask people when it comes to weight management permission to even discuss it in the first place, number one, and then to do it with compassion. And I will send you that. That article is available with a need for a subscription or anything to the Journal of the American Medical Association.
Thank you.
And the term morbid is so judgmental. I mean, if you think about it, still to this day, it may be a tie at this point, but smoking is still the number one preventable cause of death. And we don't call smokers morbid smokers. So, you know, we need to kind of back off and understand that, you know, lifestyles for everybody. I think, I'm not sure if we discussed this, but you mentioned type 2 diabetes. You know, we have 90 million pre-diabetics estimated in this country. Probably almost 10 million are of normal weight. Why don't they deserve education and a therapeutic lifestyle change support system? A lot of people with blood pressure, normal weight. Why do we have to just mark everyone for just one fraction of what the metabolic tsunami is causing? Yes, it's. I'm not saying obesity and overweight is irrelevant. It's not irrelevant. It's like Neptune. It's important. It's in the solar system, but it's not the Earth. It's not the sun. It happens.
It's part of it.
Blood pressure, yes, as a side effect of healthy lifestyle.
I've always said that. You know, it's funny you say that because you can have somebody from outward appearance looks perfectly normal. I'm air quoting. You can't see it, but because of, you know, their lifestyle, yeah, sure, they're not putting on fat, but they could have, you know, high blood pressure, diabetes, and all these other conditions lurking inside. And obesity really is just a symptom of just one symptom, visceral fat on the body.
and it's the way we measure it is even imprecise. I mean, if you think about it, there's a condition called, for instance, normal weight obesity. The easy way to think about this is, you know, I call the scale a useful idiot for this.
Thank you.
It's imprecise. It's convenient and it's useful and it's there, but here's where it can be an idiot. If somebody over 30 years lost 15 to 20 pounds of muscle and gained 15 to 20 pounds of fat, the scale's too stupid to know the difference, but that clearly is a metabolic risk. In fact, there's a risk so significant, it may even be people who are, you can call it skinny fat or TOFI, which stands for thin on the outside, fat on the
I haven't heard that one.
Whatever you want to call it. That's just another example, though, of how we need to focus on healthy lifestyle for everyone. As a matter of fact, in a recent, this was, I think this was the Journal of the American College of Cardiology, but a review of those in the United States 50 and over found that if you looked at that age, and that's, you know, that's a large fraction of adults, okay, that only 1 in 2,000 met all 7 of the American Heart Association's so-called Simple 7 criteria for heart health, which revolves around your blood sugar, your cholesterol, your blood pressure, your weight, your physical activity, your smoking status, and your eating pattern, those 7 things. 1 in 2,000. Now, look, the weight epidemic, even if you add in overweight with obesity, is only about 67, maybe 70%, let's say at the highest. Well, there seems like there's a whole bunch of people that are still in the normal weight category still need some room for improvement. So let's get rid of the hyper focus on the scale and the discrimination, like the morbid obesity concept, which way back even the Mayo Clinic kind of urged clinicians to stop using the term morbid. You could say high-grade obesity, maybe extreme obesity, but the word morbid is judgmental to the hilt, and it suggests underlying bias. It doesn't help. It's counterproductive.
Absolutely. Well, it has negative connotations, in our society. And I remember when I first heard the term super morbidly obese, and I was like, I wrote an article about that I was in. I think my BMI for the weight I was 53 at the time I was checked, and that's just off the charts for that. And I remember in the article I put a picture of Superman, but he was like really, really fat with a cape. And I said, that's what super morbidly obese is, because it's just these terms, they do carry a stigma with them. And, it doesn't help the person who's already dealing with what they know is obvious.
Yes. I mean, that's, for categorical purposes in terms of epidemiological kind of articles and so forth at the time. But in the conversation, it is not, it's not particularly helpful at all. It doesn't, and frankly, let's be honest, what percentage of doctors really even have a healthy lifestyle? We've got probably a really very, very slightly on average healthier lifestyle at most than so there's a whole lot of help that needs to go around. We don't need to get into the burnout of the medical system itself.
No.
Your point is well taken. Healthy lifestyle to engage the healthcare system or sick care system, whatever you want to call it, as little as reasonably possible is probably your best route.
Right. Well, and it's the thing on why I advocate to my followers is because I think too many people don't question when they're given a diagnosis and they're told a path of treatment, and they're not really asking questions like, well, is there anything I can do with my lifestyle? And you have every right to ask, I think doctors are becoming better with this, but I remember when I was given high blood pressure medication, I wasn't really, told much, you need to lose some weight, but I mean, I didn't know what to do at the time. And, it's hard. I understand that the pressures that physicians are under but we're not, the problem isn't going to go away the more we just keep throwing medication at it.
No, it's not. And the problem is for both sides is that unfortunately the education system has not prepared physicians. Physicians have been surveyed and feel a very low level of confidence in knowledge base. It's not a required part of training by any national standards. There are some things that are turning around in that regard slightly, but generally speaking, physicians are poorly equipped to help, not only in terms of the lack of time because of the evidence that lifestyle change support really requires multiple and frequent visits over a concentrated period of time. The doctors don't have time or the training. That leaves us in a real bind. Now, if we had to be more access to and coverage of dietitians, that might help a bit. Dietitian coverage is very poor, so you have to pay out of pocket for that. And then we've got as our friend, and I think you might be even speaking with him at some point, but Dr. David Katz likes to say, a cacophony of confusion is a fever pitch. In fact, he helps found, and I am part of the Council of Advisors and the media response team for the True Health Initiative, which is an effort to try to show that we've got about 300 or maybe probably more than that now worldwide lifestyle authorities, from doctors to nurses to dietitians and chefs, and we all agree on the same principles, meaning we agree on about 80+%, from healthy vegans to paleo to Mediterranean, whatever you want to call it. I don't even prefer labels at all. So we're really not as confused as far as us who have taken the time to learn this as the media would make the public feel. But so many really standard conventional docs are frankly confused because they have not had the training. They're trying to catch up quickly. But I got to give credit to many that I know that are really trying and
Yep.
and hopefully we'll turn that ship around, and maybe we can even discuss some of the concepts that I can at least provide through this experience and this podcast for people to at least begin the process of understanding. It is simple, not easy, like you said, not easy,
Right.
but it's simpler than you might think, at least.
Right. Yeah, and you brought up a good point. One of the things I've noticed, and I'm sure you and I have a similar background because you have your undergraduate degree with psychology, and one of the things I've noticed in the many people I've talked to who've struggled with lifestyle problems or even obesity is there's some underlying emotional or psychological problem, and if a doctor's coming in and trying to help them make change, the doctor may not be equipped to deal with that either. You know?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I can't tell you. In fact, in the 5 keys to optimal wellness that we developed, we actually put the highest key priority on what we call mind matters.
Right.
It's made up of mental health, your mindset, and mindfulness skills. Now, that being said, there is no question, and we've talked about this offline. I mean, you realize, and I'll just make it clear, it's in the public realm. I'm recovering binge eating disorder.
And I'm open about that too with mine. Yep.
Exactly. Yep. And I lost my youngest brother to a severe form of severe binge eating disorder and all of the crap that comes with it. And I can't tell you if a coach, whether it's a physician or otherwise, is not willing to go beyond just a so-called, and I'll air quote this here, diet and exercise. I prefer to call it nutrition or food and physical activity rather than those words because of their connotation. That you're really not going to be able to help someone with a transformational lifestyle change. We have issues rooted in the past, trauma, depression, anxiety, the grief and loss that has never been fully addressed, poor stress management skills that may not have really been afforded to a person by their parents or schooling or the social scenario that they live in, and even in general just the level of readiness for change. That comes more into the issue of we can't push people into this because it's a very sensitive, personal. Even just the relationship with food, let alone all these other issues you're talking about, is not something lightly. Just eat less and move more. Your physician was very, I think, well-meaning, saying like when I was over 200 pounds with fatty liver, and my father's endocrinologist asked to see me in the office because my father had diabetes, and he saw me at a party, and he said, "Why don't you come in and get checked? I'd just like to see." And then he just browbeat me into, you need to eat low fat, and
oh, great.
There's healthy versions of low fat and this and that and other thing, but I didn't know exactly what he was talking about. So it's really important. The psychological component is key. It is probably the highest priority.
Seems to be.
Of all. And frankly, Mike, in my opinion, in the way that I've seen people operate, I've seen a great advantage in people, first of all, having a level of motivation and interest. And if they're listening to this podcast, we can presume people have at least reached a level of contemplation about their lifestyle, or they wouldn't be listening. But the issue of helping them find what their motivation is. This is something called motivational interviewing. It's not about being rah-rah and having pom-poms.
No.
Argument maybe more positive psychology-oriented, but motivational interviewing in terms of finding what is what I call their why.
Yes.
Why do you
I felt that coming.
What is it that motivates you, that tastes, and I say this figuratively speaking, tastes so good to you? And some people, they're simple. When I saw my dad inject insulin, that was my first why. When I was a teen, I even knew, I'm like, this is not because of genetics and not wanting to get diabetes. But that's a negative kind of that's a fear is a decent initial motivator. But when it comes to the long run, something positive. Now, to fast forward, I've been through different whys, and whys can kind of evolve and change. But I'm 50 years old. I've got a 1-year-old boy. I've got a 3-year-old girl. Clearly, you can imagine those are two of my most powerful whys
Sure.
and why I don't want to be signing out early or burdening them with, my potentially preventable issues down the line.
Right.
Finding somebody's real motivation, and it's not even a food discussion. It acts as a guiding light, a true north, a kind of a lighthouse in the fog to guide people forward and to remind them, why this is important. And
right.
that's a mindset issue within the so-called Mind Matters key. So it's one of the first things I'll discuss with clients. Why exactly do you want to do this? That digs a little beyond, I want my A1C to go down or my blood pressure to go.
Right.
Sure, that's all great, and that's secondary wise. But what's really why? What is it that you want to do in your life? What is it that makes you want to stick around?
Yeah, that's what scares me too. So obviously there's people who will come and listen to this. But I actually have a couple people that I'm dealing with who part of the reason they tell me that they don't want to take care of their health. They do. I mean, nobody wants, this one person is as big as I was before, but revealed to me that I'll say he doesn't love himself. And so I don't even know where to begin with that. And at the same time, basically he's telling me that he's just, I'm going to paraphrase, he's just existing. He's not living, he's just getting through his day. It's just enough to get through my day to day. And yet, he's in a lot of pain physically, because of the weight and the knees and, knee problems, back problems. And, when you hear something like that, I don't love myself. It's like, wow. I mean,
that's very tough. That's the case that I hope he gets the right type of support. The issues there are complex, and having help people lose from a weight range of from 300 pounds on down. The need for really gentle and positive psychology, and remembering we really are true miracles. I mean, the fact that we're on this floating rock at all, it could be, at any moment, could be taken out. So every day is a gift, as I like to say. But that's kind of Pollyannish, and that doesn't really help this person other than maybe an initial statement. There is probably, I hope and I wish he could find a good kind of quality multidisciplinary care program that could help him with the type of support, including maybe even some temporaries. Just to be clear, I am all about lifestyle medicine first, but I have absolutely no issue with pharmaceuticals as an adjunct to support lifestyle change. It's just when the opposite is occurring, where it's all about worshiping at the altar of the drugs, as kind of an afterthought to lifestyle. That's the problem. And hopefully he could get in some counseling and some good support, and then some momentum. When that momentum occurs, he might start to gain traction and see that there's hope.
Yep. That's exactly how it went for me, because I'll be honest with you, and I wasn't talking about me, it is literally somebody else, but I was in the same boat, and that's why this person's talking to me, because I'm public about this. I was suicidal, and I did try to commit suicide, and it was because I didn't love myself and was just existing. And similar to you, it was my father's death, actually, witnessing it before my eyes, that caused me to rethink everything, because I saw regret. And that was my why. But, for some, sometimes people just don't seem to ever get there. It seems like, you wonder how much worse their condition can get before they finally, before it's too late. So.
Right. So it's very powerful that you're willing to discuss that.
It's hard.
But it's also liberating in a sense, because otherwise it's a really big burden to hold on to. And to be honest, regarding your friend, having the opportunity to let loose as to what is going on. But you're right. There are many people. Gosh, Mike, I hate to say this, but there are going to be many people that have gone too far, and that we're going to lose. And as people who help motivate, you and I have to also be sensitive to our own. You've heard the saying, of course, right? When plane is crashing, put mask on self before helping others. And yet, anyone who does want to reach out, those who are ready
Right.
and are really, we want to make sure they know that this process is possible, and it's not to give up on anybody. But if you remember, and I like to remind people I work with, I'm a DOC, I'm not GOD. There's only so much power
Right.
that we have, and there's a reason why the airlines tell you to put mask on self, and that's just a frank reality. If you try to run around and help everyone else as you're passing out from lack of oxygen,
Right.
you haven't. Then now they're dead and you're dead, and that hasn't really helped the cause. But I hope that he does well. And boy, I think one of the greatest things that I ever did was to sit down with a psychologist for over 100 sessions, and really, in fact, that psychologist motivated me to want to go into psychology. A lot of this we're talking about from teen years, but I hear it. He probably, and many people have a lot of real trauma when they grow up. They need to have a good. I think Mind Matters is the place to start. Now, some people get lucky and they can start off on a nutrition regimen, and there's something about their situation that really gets their momentum going. And these keys, Mind Matters being at the top, and nutrition being a second, activity being a third, environment, your food and social environment, for instance, a fourth, and lastly, accountability, are all interlocked enough that they influence each other. You might get lucky. You might, get some momentum and feel better about himself, and that could lead him to be motivated to see a counselor. So it doesn't have to go in the Mind Matters order first, but it really tends to work best overall or at least to recognize it as part of the journey process, not just to give someone a diet plan and an exercise program.
Well, the funny thing is I've seen this with a lot of people too. They know basically what they need to do. It's just getting that, I think, like with myself, I just had to get to the point where I was just like, screw it. I just got to try something. And I didn't know what the heck I was doing when I started. I just started. And I think people, they think it's a perfect journey. And a lot of it is, you do get that momentum, just like you're saying. And to describe that to somebody that's depressed and they have, it's hard to conceive. But I had to, as my wife says, fake it to make it until I could feel it. And boy, I tell you, when I look back at where I was 5-6 years ago to where I am now, I wouldn't trade it for anything. I mean, this is the lottery. There's nothing that I want. Millions of dollars. This life I have now. Is it tough maintaining for all these years? Yeah, it's hard work. And like you, I'm battling an eating disorder that I have mostly under control, but some days I don't. But on the other hand, my health is so much better than it ever was because of I'm going to say 80% of the time that I eat pretty decent. I'm not worried about it. And if I have to live the rest of my life like this, I'm probably, I don't know how much times better. I know I can improve, but you're right. There is a momentum you get, and and I'm on that. And the other thing is, I think for people like you and me that are trying to influence people, it's kind of being a role model for that. And I know you are too. I saw your post the other day. You were flexing, and I was like, "Oh, check him out." And it's good. You walk the walk.
Well, you got to have some fun with it. I will say though, you mentioned something, and I will make sure that I send you a video that I did on the power of maintenance. I'd like to talk about that for a bit because I think people. Let's wrap this around some statistics. Only 1 in 5 people who try to lose weight are actually able to achieve and maintain a 10% loss for 1 year. I mean, that's 1 out of 5. Now, so the irony is that people really get excited about the loss part, like, oh, I lost 2 pounds last week, and it's as if, and that's nothing to shake a stick at. That's great. That's not nearly as impressive though as maintaining. I mean, imagine if only 1 out of 5 people are able to achieve and maintain a 10% loss for 1 year. What kind of a black belt and lifestyle change you are to have been able to be in that winner's circle. And so I would say, if you don't get the power of maintenance, I got an analogy for you. if you have a chance, for instance, to go to see the beautiful painting in the Sistine Chapel by Michelangelo, and you get a chance to actually go back again, right? Let's say 7 years later, for the purported time it took him to paint that beautiful piece of art.
Yeah.
You go back 7 years later, and you have the audacity to look up at it and go, well, same damn thing as last time. Yeah, it's the same damn thing as last time, because we're so happy we're able to maintain this beautiful piece of art.
Right.
I'm a boxing fan, all right, so I know who Buster Douglas is. But most people don't remember Buster Douglas. They remember Muhammad Ali. They remember Mike Tyson. They don't remember who wrote Wang Chung Tonight. They remember the Beatles. They remember the people that came coming back again and again. That's maintaining the medal, maintaining the belt. That's where the real power is. People should be looking at the scale, if they're using that as a measure, even their blood pressure, if it's normal, and go, oh, it's normal again. That's awesome. Whatever it is that you've achieved, and it's a bit too important to remember. It's kind of like the stock market in reverse. If I look at the last 10 years, I've fluctuated up and down, even myself, and I'm a smaller guy, not even 5'7", right? So, to go up and down 16, 17 pounds is quite a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm a maintenance, this is me at maintenance. So binge eater at maintenance is not like I weigh 172.8 pounds every day for the rest of my life. But overall maintenance is an amazingly powerful thing to achieve. And if I can convey one thing, is make it exciting. That is, you're in a winner's circle. Very few people.
It's hard. It is hard. It's harder. You're right. I tell people that this phase, when I lost it all and I thought I, air quote, beat obesity, man, was I naive. But it's fun. I'm having fun. I love this. I love this life. I love what I do. But I think I was naive about, the one thing I always kept in my back of my mind was sustainability. I didn't call it that back then. Basically, I was like, I'm not going back. Is basically what I kept telling myself. I'm never going back. Now that I got this, I'm never going back. And that's what I promised myself.
And that's a mindset. See, so that's a Mind Matters scenario that's very, very powerful. And in terms of helping people make it at least simpler, maybe in that process a little bit easier, I'll advocate for a couple of things. Before we even get into, what's the healthiest, way to eat for overall health and longevity, is, and I don't know about your experience, Mike. You can tell me. But I could tell you this: environment, your food environment, particularly your home, and as a generally now. Generally, a 90, we're talking about 95% of the time, a healthy food zone, because you have so many, and this is not to deny ourselves anything. By the way, I don't believe in that. I have
me either.
In the mindset arena, we call it the 5% fun zone. There's a very good amount of data. If you start to tell someone they restricting either amount or types of food, you set up deprivation psychology. It sucks the wind out of the sails for your willpower, and that's it. The idea of setting up your home environment as a safe zone isn't to say no or deny anything. It's to say, if you really want to get it down to a dull roar, if you want to get something down to 5, 10%, even 20% of the time, while it's around you 60% of the time, I'm going to show you that Einstein's definition of insanity. It doesn't work. When I got married to my wonderful wife Angela, I gave her a chance to run. I said, look, I got to tell you about my eating issues, okay? I have just about anything in my life, but as far as it being in my face, I can't do it. I'll die. I know. And so you can run now. I hope you don't run. But before you go any further with me, I can't live a lie about this. This is the way that I'm wired. So still to this day, it wasn't a formalized prenuptial agreement or anything.
No, but yeah.
But it was based on a hug and a kiss and a handshake or whatever. And still to this day, we've got it set up so, cheese, please, let's put it in a drawer that's opaque. I can't see it.
You're a cheese guy too, huh?
Oh my gosh!
I love cheese.
One of the chapters in the book that I'll put out eventually is called "Where Did All the Cheese Go?" And that's a funny story, because after we got together, she said, "Now come on, isn't there a little, she did the Jedi mind trick. Isn't there a little give on cheese? You're a nutrition expert. There's got to be some kind of relatively healthy cheese that tastes okay. And I thought back, before I met her in Miami. So before I went to Miami and I was the associate medical director for the Pritikin Longevity Center, I kind of weaned myself away from cheese down there because the Pritikin program is pretty strict. But I had this trick, right? I had this trick. I'd make a 1% shredded cheese cheddar. They didn't make a 1% shredded cheddar, so I mixed Kraft 2%.
Yep.
First I mixed Kraft fat-free shredded cheddar.
Yeah.
Kraft 2%.
Oh,
sharp.
Okay.
Sharp. Couldn't be mild. Had to be sharp. Now, because let's be honest, the fat-free tastes like shit.
It
so
does.
I said, okay, I'm going to blend it because I couldn't find a 1%. I'm looking for 1%. So I said, let me make it. I started thinking dilution is the solution, right? So I would mix them in a big bowl together, the Kraft.
Oh my gosh.
And I was about to put them back as I'm showing her how to do this, and she says, wait a minute. Let's use these Ziploc baggies. They've got this little white window here, and we can take a Sharpie and write Tommy on one, and then Angela on the other, and there's your bag, and there's. And I said, all right, honey, let's try it out. And it must have been even the next day, at most 2 days later. I wake up in the morning, I hear the egg whites hit the pan for omelets. She likes to do these, these cheese egg white omelets.
Oh yeah.
I'm brushing my teeth in the bathroom, and then I hear, "Hey, where did all the cheese go?" I got the toothbrush in my mouth, I'm like, I don't know, honey. Where do you think it went?
Oh, brother, we are.
It's 4:00 yesterday. I'm waiting for you till 5:00. You think the name on a bag is going to stop me?
No, no.
I just went right down the gullet. So,
brother,
I'm not kidding.
Listen, man. I've had this conversation. I unfortunately, when I met my wife, I was morbidly obese at the time too, or big. I was probably not at my biggest, but she already knew what she was getting into with that, and I hadn't been in touch with and I wrote an article called The Unequal Yoke because I've had to learn to do all this. This is going to impress you even more. While my wife eats cookies and all kinds of stuff around me, and I wrote an article called The Unequal Yoke. She hides them. I find them, but I'm stuck. The other one was peanut butter. It's cheese and peanut butter. I can just plow through peanut butter. And I've gotten better because, like you said, I think the more I deprive myself, but, I got into her. She buys the ice cream that, is not my favorite. I still, once in a while, get into it.
No, that's, you've got the balance though, man.
Yeah.
At least you're trying to and you're not telling yourself that you can't. So the idea of managing the environment is not just subtractive. It's about having people out on the island, don't stick the apples in the crisper where you can't, see them 4 months later and they're looking like they're prehistoric.
Right.
You want to have that stuff out in front of you, but the idea isn't to deny yourself so much.
No.
To set your environment up for success so that it's mindlessly easy. But no, you can't expect, to have absolutism. You might just find that, like you're doing with your wife, so you know what? It's a little, you found a little treasure. But you won't find it as often if she wasn't at least helping try to hide them.
She does try. Yeah. So, it's hard to hide the ice cream because, unless you lock the freezer.
Well, let me tell you something else, too. When you do, because it's funny you say that. I think it was day before yesterday. Must have been a couple months. I'm pretty darn sure that they put heroin in Starbucks brownies. I'm not but I'm pretty sure that now. So one of my kind of 5% fun zone moments is when I have a brownie moment. I'll go, and it was 2 days ago, and I had this Starbucks brownie, and I call it the moment of silence. Right now, my wife and I developed this over a Starbucks brownie, but the idea was we looked at it, and we were having them more regularly at the time, and we said, my gosh, they put the calories up, as if I don't know, right? But it's like 400 and something calories, and we're like, maybe we should split one instead of having one each. And then we both looked at our small halves, and I looked at her and I said, honey, can we have a moment of silence? I want to get into this. I want to savor this. And I would go, I don't believe in guilt-based eating or talking about that crap. So when you're having something, I would say on that less often or more rare moment, I would say delve into it and truly enjoy it. You'll be surprised. You can live off the memory. If you do it with guilt, you will never really fully be satisfied, and you start to fall more into that. Well, I had one. I might as well do 10. And it doesn't really free you. And when you're going to have a moment, enjoy it. Sit back and let yourself really, really enjoy it. You know, you're not. We get so into extremist diet talk, like, oh, if you have a French fry, you'll die of a stroke the next 5 minutes. No, you won't.
Right.
Yeah, sure. If you repeat it, it's just like smoking. You don't get.
Right.
By the way, I'm not promoting smoking here.
No.
It's not going to get lung cancer from a cigarette.
Right.
We know that is a very toxic behavior. Yet somehow we get into this very hyperbolic discussion over a comfort food. What we should discuss it as is, look, it provides comfort. There's no question it works. It is a risk. So let's just look at the balance, and then you ask yourself, what is, Dr. Tom's definition of moderation? However much you need to not want to kill me, okay? and then you find that amount and really enjoy it. But to set it up so that it's that balance where you can still have and be healthy, there has to be some kind of environmental tweak, your home, work, and car in your favor. But the goal isn't zero tolerance. The goal is to get it down to a dull, enjoyable roar. The other area that I would say that we really miss out on is how we go about physical activity. We've really learned from these longevity hotspots, so-called blue zones, and I will tell you, first, actually, really nobody knows this, but I am working with people on site in Sardinia to set up a very kind of curated private tour of the island where the longevity hotspots are. But the point is that the people, whether it's Sardinia, whether it's in Costa Rica, this area called Nicoya, Okinawa, they are not exercisers. They get a lot of mild to moderate physical activity broken up in pieces throughout the day. You can call it 10,000 steps, this and that, but they don't go and hit and go and kill themselves, with a CrossFit. No, that's not what's linked to longevity. Is more that volume throughout the day. This is the thing about that interests me the most, though. We know that intense exercise, I do it. I need it because without it, I'd be on
stress, whatever. Right. Yep.
Okay? But when it comes down to appetite control, high intensity exercise
increases
appetite for most people.
Yeah.
The irony is, so does sitting. What a lot of people do is they work out really hard and then they sit the rest of the day. What we found in 2 studies from decades apart in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, different continents, decades apart, that mild to moderate movement broken up throughout the day actually slightly decreases appetite. And to add to that, these hunter-gatherers that are coming out and showing that we don't burn nearly as many calories as that treadmill or that elliptical or any calculator you see on MyFitnessPal or, with all due respect, my favorite tracker, Lose It, at all. Probably 75% less. We find that the body is apparently, with high volumes of physical activity, burning less calories. If muscle's burning more calories, the kidneys are burning less, the liver's burning less. You're getting less inflammation from physical activity. That's great, but that means your immune system's burning less. You'd have to push it to like Biggest Loser levels to get it, because your body can't just shut down. You'd have to really push it to levels that are unmaintainable.
Right.
But it's not that getting lots of steps doesn't help with the calorie balance. It just doesn't seem that physical activity helps with calorie balance by burning calories so much as at least this non-exercise activity time helps by decreasing your appetite. So there's a real trick to when people just start and they say, well, what should I do first? Should I go to this really intense cardio boxing thing? I'd say, you know what? Let's just start with a pedometer and see what your baseline is and get you into walking throughout the day, at least at the beginning, because you'll be a level of physical activity that will be below the threshold of triggering hunger hormones and help you control your appetite. Now, will we eventually need exercise? I think so, because we're not going to become the the farmers of Costa Rica or the goat herders of Sardinia walking up the sides of the mountain, which at times is like doing a Stairmaster, to be honest. So that being said, sure. But I think in the physical activity area, people lose out on the, well, I got to go to the gym. No, every little bit counts. Every 2 minutes. Take a business call while walking.
I love that.
Take the business. Take the park at the end of the lot. Just commit to when you're grocery shopping. I mean, if it's raining and storming, of course, just like the 5% fun zone, be realistic. But make it a commitment. You go to the mall, you'll skip the conveyor belt. We've got a mall here in Detroit called Somerset that takes people from the north to the south side of the street to the north and south side of the mall on the conveyor belt. I just think it's so hilarious.
Oh my gosh!
I'm like, really? I mean, it's not like we're asking you to build a pyramid by hand. And you even go to a conference like the American Diabetes Association. I've got pictures where we've got all these healthcare providers taking the escalator.
The escalator. Oh gosh! I knew you were.
Old people going up and down the stairs. I mean, come on, doctors. Give us
walk, man.
Take some stairs. And it's the 10th floor. Well, okay, go up to the 8th floor on the elevator and take 2 flights. Think outside the box.
Yeah.
You can really get, and now, every bit counts. Like I'm telling your fans and your followers, be a neat freak. Non-exercise activity time, NEAT. You will be surprised how much health benefit, appetite control, and diabetes risk reduction. Blood pressure might be better controlled by brisk exercise, but blood sugar, I'll tell you something, muscle is a very what have you done for me lately tissue, and the American Diabetes Association is now focusing in on getting people up and out of their chairs because we find that a mild 15-minute walk after dinner or a meal in the evening controls blood sugar better after that meal than a 45-minute brisk session of exercise in the morning. Not that brisk exercise in the morning doesn't help with other things, your bone health, your balance, your blood pressure, your mood. Yes, but as far as blood sugar control goes, if you think you can exercise in the morning and sit all the rest of the day, no, that you got to be a neat freak and an exerciser ultimately, but neat, non-exercise activity time's easier for many people and seems to offer an appetite controlling mechanism somewhere around the 8,000 step point. If you want to talk about the average, it's hard to say, everyone's a little different. So you really do want to emphasize that component, and that's the emphasizing the activity key that we talk about. Really the last key is accountability. And that's a tough one too, because what you mentioned in the beginning, you talked to I'm not sure if we were offline, but we were talking about how it's like swimming upstream because our environment's set up to eat very, very bliss point oriented, calorie rich and processed,
supersized,
say crap, CRAP, calorie rich and processed. It's everywhere. The chairs are everywhere. And we don't have people, pulling us over. Oh, you ate 3 Kit Kats. We're going to have to give you a ticket for the 3rd one. You've got, alcohol. You're going to, you drink and drive. You got accountability. Smoking, can't smoke within 150 feet of this place. Sorry. And those are, you think about food. It's far more challenging. You can't stop eating.
No.
You don't need to drink.
That's what I say all the time.
And where's the accountability? So working with a coach, or at least connecting with a band of like-minded people, or even just tracking. If you can be self-accountable, but it really does add that 5th component that helps at least in the first 2 years. The last thing I'll say. On this, I will say in terms of maintenance, because this really started the conversation, we found from the National Weight Control Registry that it takes at least 2 years of maintenance before the odds of long-term success really start to take off. So if you...
I beat it.
Yes, exactly. Your odds are really high. It doesn't mean that there isn't, continuing need, but it becomes probably nowhere you're going to shop. You know some of the restaurants that you like and that'll do your bidding. You've got the momentum with physical activity. All these things that were new and kind of stressful, they have now become evolved from new behaviors to new habits to now old habits that hopefully will, in a good way, die hard. And that's a really important thing for people to understand, so they don't think that there's some quick fix. Even if you get to some point of metabolic health after, let's say, 6 or 9 months, that's when the clock starts ticking on this 2 years. Not from the beginning, but from when you reach that point.
Interesting.
That you're let's say much healthier, and then you start to time. To keep another point in mind is an amount of weight loss. So people will talk about, I need to lose 100 million pounds. Well,
of
they
what?
make that mistake, and the more that you time, but at the point that someone who has prediabetes loses 10% of their body weight, particularly if they can do it within a year, let alone in 6 months, at that point we see from the best kind of studies we know, which are called randomized controlled trials, but they take lifestyle against a pill, the best pill we know to prevent diabetes called metformin, versus don't do anything, and they found that at a 10% weight reduction, the risk of developing diabetes in a pre-diabetic was cut by 85%.
Holy smokes!
Subsequent several years. So I'm not saying don't go further, but even at 5%, the risk was almost 50% less. So again, just like being a neat freak with physical activity and every little bit counts, every little bit of weight loss counts. Go further. Absolutely. Go as far as you can. But for anyone that's feeling bad about 10%, remember we just mentioned only 1 out of 5 people can maintain a 10% loss for 1 year. That doesn't mean it's the case if you go to a quality program or you get a good coach. Those people probably have higher odds. But if you take all comers, that's about the numbers. So,
that's interesting, huh? It is kind of staggering just how such a small amount can have such a profound effect. But that's encouraging. It
is. It seems to be, for whatever reason, in most people, the first fat that's evacuated is so-called visceral or belly fat, and that is the most metabolically risky fat. Liver fat, for instance, tends to decrease quickly. So a lot of people, before bariatric surgery, for instance, the surgeons will ask them to get on a strict program so they can shrink their liver, which allows them to see the surgical field. It allows them to see better, because otherwise that fatty liver will be hanging over and make it difficult to do the rerouting that they need to do. So that's probably the reason why. And the other thing is that, for better or worse, we now know that you aren't born with a certain amount of fat cells, and that's it. You can multiply them by the billions, but the fat that tends to multiply tends to be the less risky kind of hip oriented and peripheral fat. Abdominal fat has to grow really large before it starts to split into new cells. So while it's the more risky fat, it tends to go first in people who are motivated and do the right thing, so to speak. So that's the good news. And the tough news is to tell people, look, you've got billions of extra fat cells now, but they're the less risky type. But you don't need to get to your military weight or your married weight. You want to get to the point that you feel great, your blood pressure's good, your blood sugar's good.
Yes.
And after that, wherever the weight is where lifestyle you and God decided. That as far as I'm concerned.
Healthy and happy. Amen. Because that's really what I try to emphasize now over just the weight itself. And even myself, I'm in the overweight category. Now I lift, so I'm a lot more bulky and muscle wise than I was when I lost all the weight, because I lost a lot of muscle too. And that's, I'm imagine, pretty common with those type of reductions that you see.
Totally normal, but the quality of your muscle is probably, we don't need to do a biopsy to prove it. But while the quantity may be less, the quality is probably much higher. There's not all the marbling and so forth.
That's true.
When you see that, by the way, in a prime steak, that's a cattle with diabetes. By the way.
Wow.
So that being said, you may want to get a body composition analysis, but Mike, if your blood pressure is good, your blood sugar is good. If you could get a fasting insulin level checked, we can talk about that offline. But what are some metabolic tests? You're not overweight. You would be whatever your weight is.
Yeah, it's the stinking charts. Yeah, it's that's why
other stuff has got to go out the window.
I know.
You can't, especially in the overweight category. From that point up to even mild obesity, there's just too much imprecision. You have to individually assess. Again, if your resting blood pressure and your resting heart rate is great, and your cholesterol is great, and your blood sugar is great, and you're just in the overweight category, you are much better off than someone who's pre-diabetic with elevated blood pressure and cholesterol and normal, air quote, normal weight. So,
we're doing a lot of
that and other factors are far more important than the scale. You're already a 10th dan black belt in weight loss.
Right.
Tell me again how you're maintaining about if you don't mind, I'm gonna switch the interview around here.
Yeah, sure.
You're down about how much now? You've maintained.
Well, I mean, in total I had lost 209 pounds. I did it, and you're ready for this. I lost 205 pounds in 11 months. And wow. I know, and you were like, whoa, but I don't know. I've met other people who've done that. And so I guess that's not unusual. It's certainly, there's a lot. I would never recommend people to do it that way, but it just kind of happened. The first several months, I didn't see much visibly. And then about, I'm going to say the 100 or so pound mark, it just started, but I think I pushed myself at that point, I was a lot more,
I'll tell you this, if we look at least in controlled studies, large studies in which the weight loss is under monitoring and under a program that's sound, and
right.
we're going to presume that's the kind of that the way that you did it was a sound approach. It wasn't.
I just my doctor watching me. I honestly
right.
did my own. And my fitness pal.
You're monitored by a doc. I
right.
bet you there are fruits and vegetables involved and
yep.
things like that. So
yeah, over time. Yeah.
In that context, we actually see in best studies that those who lose faster actually have a higher likelihood of maintaining the loss. And there's a massive study called the Look Ahead trial, for instance. It's 5,000 person randomized study from Duke to Harvard and
yep.
Brown University and 13 other sites, and randomizing diabetics with excess weight to either an intensive lifestyle versus usual care. And really those that lost the most weight early on, 4 years down the line, had a much higher likelihood of 50%, almost 50% likelihood of maintaining the loss versus those that lost slower. It wasn't those that were none that lost slower and weren't successful. There were, but it dropped to those that lost less than 10% the first year. There was only about a 15% chance that 4 years out they'd be substantially lighter. And those that lost less than 5% in the first year, it was down to 4% chance that in 4 years they would be substantially lighter. So by no means that you do it the wrong way. Everyone has to do it their own way.
Well, that's a good point. Yeah.
That can be better if it's done the way you did it, which was with sound eating, physical activity, and medical monitoring.
Yeah, I eventually moved towards, it was an evolution, but I've moved more to, and we haven't talked much about, I'm going to use the word food intake because I don't like that 4-letter word either. Move towards a more plant-based and whole foods type food intake is what I tend to do now. And I even did, I do a little, so during the week, I think you and I talked about this, during the week, for convenience, and because I do sit at my job, although we have standing desks.
Well, that makes a difference.
Yeah, and I also take a walk during lunch, so that's my big thing.
Absolutely.
I do that every day. But I eat what people would call a vegan lunch every day. I eat mostly plant-based lentils, vegetable. I have a big bag of vegetables and my hummus dip, and I do that every day. And so it's try to have balance with all that. And then if I do want to screw around on the weekend a little bit, I don't worry about it. Just within reason.
Absolutely.
But it takes an evolution. You can't go from a 400 and whatever I was pound man eating whatever I was. It was smart sort of changes over time. I would sneak vegetables into my food. I wasn't a big vegetable eater, obviously. So big carb.
You're right on it. As far as the progressive changes towards that's absolutely consistent with true masters of lifestyle change. So that's fantastic. And thank you for reminding me. Speaking of something that has been really strongly encouraged by the medical community for those of us that preach lifestyle, so to speak, is to make clear how we eat. I really, as you know, don't like brand names of things. But if you were going to ask me how I eat, I coined a term called a plant predominant flexitarian, which basically means, yes, I am plant predominant, but I hold no absolute prohibitions. A flexitarian, by the way, is always there at number 3 in the U.S. News and World Report, diet scores. It's either Mediterranean or DASH, the so-called dietary approaches to stop hypertension, which are 95% the same thing. And flexitarian consistently kind of that dark horse coming in third, but that really is the most reasonable way that the majority of people will be able to handle. Yes, the healthy things are simple. They are not necessarily easy, but nevertheless, let's just get them out there. Absolutely. Whole fruits, vegetables, beans, lentils, and peas, cooked 100% whole grains are in a group of foods we say have low calorie density. They have a high water weight content inside them. Okay, I'm not talking about drinking water with raisins and praying they turn back into grapes. Nothing against raisins. Raisins would definitely be a better sweet choice than a jelly bean for obvious reasons like potassium and fiber and minerals. But when it comes to being full on less calories, foods that have a high water content locked in that fiber, whole fruits and vegetables from roots in the ground, and from cooking when it comes to beans, lentils, and peas, or what we call legumes, and these 100% whole grains, whether that's brown rice or oatmeal or your fancy quinoa and amaranth and farro, whatever the case may be, even whole wheat pasta.
I like them all.
They have high water content, and they tend to cause stretch receptors in the stomach from that content to fire that sends fullness signals to the brain. Weight of food seems to be very important part, true, not all, but very important part of satiety or being satisfied. In the animal food world, obviously there's foods that have high water content too, like, your low and fat-free yogurts and egg whites and chicken breasts and fish, not fried, but, baked and broiled. Those you mix and match all those things together, and you pretty much have healthy longevity eating, and particularly if it's got a plant predominant approach to it. And then when you go to the dry foods, still, if you can go whole plant, better. Now, as a brother peanut butter addict, I'm going to tell you that, I still, peanut butter is a non-negotiable to me. Don't even
amen.
But the truth is, we've got studies showing that whole nuts, let's say in this case, a study on almonds, very well controlled and kind of tough. I mean, the researchers had to assess, stool and residual content. So in the almonds, whole almonds group, only 75% of the calories were absorbed. In the almond butter group, virtually all the calories are absorbed because basically the machine, pulverizes and sets it to easy to access calories. Whereas with whole foods, the crevices and the little areas that digestive enzymes can't get to and stuck behind fiber here and there, we don't absorb all the calories from whole fruits, whole vegetables, whole lentils, versus crushed lentil soup, for instance, or whole chickpeas versus hummus. Now, that's not to say hummus, which I like, is bad. I'm just saying, relatively speaking, the more you can make it whole food, plant rich, the better you will be in terms of fullness, and you won't even absorb all those calories. That being said, in the dry food world, clearly, if you want something fatty and sweet, that dry nut and fruit would be better than a whatchamacallit bar. I mean, know that, unless a whatchamacallit is non-negotiable and you want to kill me if you can't have it.
But it's funny now. I enjoy it because my taste buds have changed. I love things like dates, figs, and even though those are very high in sugar and calorie density, my taste buds enjoy that type of fruit sweetness. I eat an apple now and it tastes better.
Absolutely, and you find a really good apple or a really good peach, really good berries. They taste fantastic. And one thing about the dried fruit is, remember, at least you're getting a very good concentrated source of blood pressure lowering, potassium, the fiber that helps control the cholesterol, and also helps. Let's just talk a moment about the microbiome. I don't want to go into deep dive there, but the so-called gut microbiome, which is a lot less known about what to do about it than the news that's out there. But one thing we do know if you tend to have a plant-predominant eating pattern with high fiber, we generally see you have the type of gut bacteria that are associated with lower infection or diabetes risk, and the gut bacteria that are healthy tend to use fiber like a combined fertilizer for healthy gut bacteria and weed killer for unhealthy gut bacteria. And that healthy gut bacteria can digest that fiber into things called short-chain fatty acids that actually can act as an appetite suppressant in addition to other things that they do. So, yeah, look, still, dried fruit, high in fiber, nuts and seeds, your shredded wheat, that's technically high calorie density, but these are chewy. We didn't even talk about how chew can lower hunger. But they're chewy, they're high in fiber, they're much smarter, and without any calorie-dense foods, it just doesn't, it's not life. And even, frankly, occasionally, some comfort food, but everyone can tolerate a little bit of crap. It's like we're overloading ourselves with crap.
Right. You can't just eat,
Coming from those foods, it's just out of control.
Yeah, and there's no, what, it's interesting, I say sometimes, and even though I don't always live it, it's like if you have a treat all the time, it no longer is a treat. It's, it loses that sort of excitement.
That's a great point. That's why the moment of silence is so important. Let me leave you with this one last tip, and maybe we can kind of give people an idea about, because I'm going to imagine, like myself, you're at least historically, and maybe still to some degree to this day, like large volumes, and so a lot of people just have lost the ability to know when to stop eating, and frankly, ironically, many people are also ignoring their hunger throughout the day, letting themselves focus on other things and letting to the point that they're starving. And then, of course, they've got hunger dragon and craving dragon at the end of the day to deal with, and you're a tired warrior and you're getting killed by the Khaleesi's dragon. That would be a reference to Game of Thrones. But that being said, the 1 minute halftime is something I've found to be very helpful for people who are, this is perfectly discussed in the sense of a kind of a restaurant setting where the portion sizes, as we all know, are twice as big as they should be. And the 1 minute halftime approach, beyond the other obvious things, like don't walk into a restaurant starving out of your mind often if you can avoid that. And the other things like, try to have, a salad first instead of try to, nix the bread basket, all that stuff. If you can pull that off. But the 1 minute halftime comes down to there are so many people who I don't think are really foodies. To put your fork down 245 times. Why don't you just shoot me now? I mean, I'm not going to do that. If the meal comes out and it's hot and it's fresh, I want to enjoy it however fast I freaking want to eat it. Well, all we're asking is one time, sometime, somewhere around halfway through the plate, halfway through the meal, just once. Put the fork down for just a moment. It doesn't have to be a literal halfway point, a literal minute, but 1 minute halftime kind of sounds easy to remember. But the point is somewhere around that halfway point, just put the fork down just for a moment, take a sip of water and think. But remember, it takes a little while for that fullness signal to catch up. And ask yourself, am I comfortably full? And if you are, think about maybe eating a little bit more, I guess, if you are truly still hungry, and then packing some away. Why, Mike? Because we know that you are not going to stay. Let's say the first half of that meal will keep you full for 2.5 hours. The second half will not keep you full for another 2.5 hours. It might add another 30 or 40 minutes. So you're actually losing the ability at that point to take advantage of your fullness signal to the max. So if you're truly comfortably full and you can stop there, don't wait till you're stuffed to the gourd. It's not really going to help you calorie balance-wise. You can save that for a snack later and save some money too. So there you go.
You come out of it always stuffed. Yeah, I've always said the way I got big was I always ate to capacity, not to satiation. So.
Yes, and some of us still. I mean, I can't lie and say I don't like that feeling. I'm a nighttime binger, and
me too. Yeah,
it's under. I don't think I'll ever be that person that can not eat 3 hours before bed. I just. But it used to be 2 large pizzas, and I'd honest to God wake up vomiting myself at this.
I get you sick.
Yeah, now I can have a nice bowl of bran cereal or something and a big piece of fruit. But some of us just have that need. But as you learn over time to, number one, avoid, don't starve, don't stuff either way, right? You don't want to starve yourself, let yourself go too long throughout the day. That's the whole idea of bringing food with you if you can, so that you're not running into Neanderthal levels of hunger hormones so high it's out of control. But on the other end of the spectrum, to try to stop eating when comfortably full, because we've trained we're born with this, by the way. It's very easy for my daughter. I mean, I tell you, honey, if you're hungry, eat. If you're not, stop. I don't have to tell her about 3 levels of hunger. There's low, medium, high, and all that stuff that I have to do to retrain people, because we designed a world where hunger, fullness? No. I eat because it's a Super Bowl. I eat because it's a wedding. I eat because it's it's lunchtime, whatever it is. Rather than, are you hungry? Eat. If you're not, don't eat. Now, the bit of added issue there is training people to learn about early hunger, where it's really kind of the early signals are coming from your head. You're losing a little bit of energy. Your focus is dropping. Your stomach's not rumbling yet at level, low, level 1. Once it starts to hit your stomach at all, now you better get ready to get something healthy to eat soon, because once it goes to, level 3, you're cat's out of the bag. Hunger hormones like ghrelin will make a human impulsive and disconnected from intellectual ability to control eating. So.
Oh boy, yeah. Amazing. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, man, it's been fantastic. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. This is just, we could probably go on, and as we said, we could probably do more of these in the future. But before we go, why don't we tell listeners ways they can follow you, your website, so I know your company, Reality Meets Science?
Absolutely. Oh, thank you for mentioning that. Yes, my wellness coaching and consulting and speaking company is Reality Meets Science. You can catch me on Facebook either at the Dr. Tom Rifai page. If you just search Dr. Dr. Tom Rifai, R-I-F-A-I. If you just search for Tom Rifai, you're going to just see baby pictures and maybe pictures at my last Kiss concert or something like that. but if you put the DR there, you'll get what you're looking for, Dr. Tom Rifai, and the Reality Meets Science page. I tend to do more science kind of stuff there, posting and longer videos. So they're slightly complementary, but both the Dr. Tom Rifai page and the Reality Meets Science Facebook pages are great places to stay in touch.
This is great. Well, Dr. Tom, thank you so much. Stick around just a second after I stop the recording. Everyone, I hope you enjoyed this podcast. This was a real pleasure. I've been looking forward to this one. And guys, as I always say, stay awesome.